You've heard all of these comparisons to our, haphazardly leaving Saigon, ending tragically the Vietnam War nearly 50 years ago. So do they compare? Well, a lot of people are saying there is no comparison. This situation is indeed worse, far worse. Harry Kazianis is the Center for National Interest Senior Director. Harry, good to have you. How do they compare?
Well, I think, Neil, there's some obvious comparisons, some obvious differences. I mean, the one I think that's right out there is obviously both conflicts are civil wars. I mean, obviously, when it comes to Afghanistan, it's been a civil war that's been brewing for 30, 40 years. I mean, as long as I've been born. In Vietnam, a little bit different type of civil war. But I think that the difference here is that when we left Vietnam, the wound in terms of the damage to our geopolitical standing in the world was essentially cauterized when we left. Obviously, we took a reputational blow. It was obviously tragic, but it was over at that point. I mean, let's face it, the Vietnamese weren't planning to host terrorists that could attack our homeland or attack our allies or attack military bases. That's really, I think, the big difference here. Essentially, what Joe Biden has done is he has opened a black hole in Central Asia that is not going to be easy to sort of fill back up. And I think that's really the big danger here.
You know, Harry, I was in high school. I remember when we were leaving Vietnam, but I don't remember the North Vietnamese doing anything to get in the way of our departure. In fact, PR-wise, I'm sure they relished the images and didn't want to do anything to stall or stop them. I'm not so sure about the Taliban today. I know what it's saying about being humane and everyone can come down. We're not going to harm Americans. But I also see how they've encircled the Kabul airport. So if you question them or try to get beyond that perimeter to get more Afghans out, I don't know if they'll react the same way. What do you think?
I don't know, Neil. I mean, I think the problem here is we need to look at why Joe Biden did this long term. What was the strategy here? I don't see one. I think what really Joe Biden was thinking, and this would be some sort of wildly popular decision that Afghanistan would hold for maybe 2 to 5 years, that he would basically score political points. And I think that's really an absolute shame. I think we need to state, Neil, really what was going on here. The fact
but he did ignore his generals, right? I mean, the generals were telling him that will not likely be the case, and you should be aware of that, sir. We're told anecdotally of all these who were concerned about the timing of this, especially keeping it before 9/11 and all of that. Now, of course, there were similar generals who were concerned about Donald Trump's May 1st planned pullout. But having said that, and he was at least telegraphed potential problems, that is President Biden, to getting our folks out and to doing it, in the middle of all of this, he ignored it all. Now, he criticized Donald Trump for ignoring his top generals. It appears he did the same.
He did. He absolutely did. And here's the fact I don't think a lot of people want to say out loud, but I'm going to say it. The 2,500 Americans that were in Afghanistan were on a deterrence and containment mission to ensure the country did not collapse, to ensure that this did not happen. Now, I think, honestly, a lot of people are going to say, well, how can only just 2,500 troops do that? Well, I think the Taliban and all the terrorists would understand that we'd be able to build up forces very, very quickly in the region if they started really pushing the advance. The other thing, though, we have to keep in mind is that while it is not popular to have U.S. forces in Afghanistan, the country was relatively stable. And I say relatively in a very sort of murky sort of sense, because nothing is really stable in Afghanistan. But there was no way that the country was going to be overrun by the Taliban. And what this does to President Biden is it makes him look like President Chaos. When you look at all the other problems the United States has, whether it's problems on the border, all the illegal immigration that comes in from that, obviously problems in our cities with crime, inflation, you put this on top of that, and it just compounds and creates a narrative for him that's going to be very hard to remove.
You know, the Wall Street Journal has a short but pithy editorial today, Harry, in which the headline is, Biden to Afghanistan, drop dead. Is that your view?
I mean, look, in some respects, yes. But my bigger fear here, Neil, is that our allies are going to start questioning what other commitments is Joe Biden going to take away. I mean, look, one of my favorite areas to study is the Korean Peninsula. What does the South Koreans think that we're going to do if there's trouble with North Korea in the future? I mean, we have 28,500 troops there, and that is a civil war that never has ended. It's the ultimate, endless war. I mean, what would we do there? I mean, the reason why the United States has forward deployed troops all over the world is because it's a benefit to us, because it creates stability. It creates the markets, the freedoms, the things that we all love as Americans. That is a benefit for the United States. When we start questioning that, when we start questioning the stability that we brought to Afghanistan, even though it was paid for by the blood and treasure of this country, we can make that argument anywhere. We can make that argument in Germany, in Korea, in England, in Japan. I think this is a debate this country needs to have.